Alright everyone, this is the Twins of Destruction. It's going to be our third Assassin's Creed video. This time it's not going to be about the trailer, but it's going to be about Assassin's Creed and the series itself. Mainly with Unity and Beyond and like upcoming games and such, I guess. But first we're going to talk about Sam Adams and Connor, and they had a conversation. And it dealt with talking about Surrey, which was Sam Adams' slave slash housemaid, I guess you can call it, because that could give on to a Civil War type deal. Just watch the clip and you'll kind of understand.
I'm headed to a meeting with some men who should be able to help. Why don't you come along? It's good to see the people finally taking a stand against injustice.
Says the man who owns a slave.
Ooh, sorry? I practice what I preach, my friend. She's not a slave, but a freed woman, at least on paper. Men's minds are not so easily turned. It's a tragedy that for all our progress, still we cling to such barbarism.
Then speak out against it.
We must focus first on defending our rights. When this is done, we'll have the luxury of addressing these other matters.
You speak as though your condition is equal to that of the slaves. It is not.
In that short clip that you fine people have just witnessed, Sam Adams talks about how, in a summed up version, he says that pretty much slavery is the next problem in American history. Like, we have to worry about ourselves, and then we can focus on slavery. And in American history, we were formed as a country, and then soon after, in the late 1800s, slavery was abolished. So, in the timeline, for like great things to happen in history, in American history,
It would fit right in.
it would fit right in. It'd be American Revolution to the American Civil War, which eventually abolished slavery.
And Assassin's Creed series do have kind of a bunch of hints in all their games on where they're going next.
If it's to the next game, or to the next game after the next, or
So on and so forth.
and you will see that also later in the episode.
Stand down!
In that other last short clip that you guys have just witnessed, it shows Connor witness a slave auction, which, if anybody doesn't know, there were many slave auctions throughout history, American history and regular history, where they would take a minority race and literally sell them. Families, children, wives, men, and they would literally sell them for money, and people would use them for purposes.
Work purposes. And as you can see there, Connor turned around and he's seen the family standing there, and he kind of looked in confusion and like almost disgust. Like he was all like, wait, what? Like, it's here? Like, he knew it was like around, but like it's spreading. And he knows that. He realizes that.
Because it hasn't been witnessed throughout the whole game.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it just shows it in the last cutscene. And like, this is the epilogue. Like, literally, this is like literally the almost end of the game.
Yeah, it's the last scene.
So they wanted to show you it. I think that they were going to do it later, like in another installment.
Like it's going to be a continued story. Along the line of slavery goes the Civil War, which, as you can see right on the screen now, there's all the time periods that have been put in the email that Abstergo had and you hacked into in Assassin's Creed 4. Excuse me. And it says 19th century New England and American Midwest. And then in the screen I put up right now, you can see that there is one of the Abstergo employees, and she talks about saying that her great-great-grandfather had fought in the Civil War and met President Lincoln a few times.
And we don't necessarily, we as in players, don't have to play as Sample 17 anymore. Like, we can go to anybody. Just like how we did for Ottawale. We went to a random person to play as him. Like, we can go to, let's just say, this Abstergo employee to play as her ancestor.
She also stated that in the above, paragraph above, in the same paragraph, just a couple sentences before, she said she has family on both sides who had fought in both world wars, and as you do know, there were, or as we know, that there were assassins in both world wars, and that would, to me, make a very particularly interesting story.
But sadly, Abstergo has stated in the same email that they don't really have the capability of doing vehicles or tanks or helicopters. So
It would take up too much Animus space.
So I think that anything past maybe early 1900s, maybe like the Progressive era, anything past there,
They might not go to. Unless there is a small exception for some sort of thing. I don't know.
But along the lines of Sample 17, we have also known that Clay Kazmuzak, which is Desmond's second cousin, I think, he has a relative that fought in the Battle of Gettysburg. Not saying he's an assassin, not saying that they're going to go with him, but that's just a thought. They say that if
more people to go with.
Yeah, if he's Desmond's second cousin, so that dude that's in the Battle of Gettysburg is somewhat related to Desmond.
Yeah, he
And-
could have been an assassin because the whole family probably was.
I don't know about Clay.
Clay
but
was.
He was.
William trained him.
Sweet. Anyways. So, that's just another thought.
You sure you asked it the right thing?
I know this. I know that symbol. That's a Phrygian cap. It stands for freedom, and that's a Masonic eye. Now those two come together in only one place.
What's happening? I can't move.
Your DNA communes.
We have just played you another clip to show you some news you might not have heard, but recently kind of came out. In Brotherhood, at the end of the game, you can see whenever Desmond was going up to the apple, it showed the Fijian Cap and the Masonic Eye, which stand for freedom, and they both represent the American Revolution and the French Revolution. So that kind of means to me that Connor, spoiler alert, skip ahead. If you don't want to hear anything, skip ahead a couple seconds. Connor had gotten the key so he can later pass it on to Desmond. So that is very important to Juno. So if Juno makes it important by showing him the Fijian Cap and the Masonic Eye, whichever one dealt with the French Revolution, obviously that is very important to Juno also. And as we know, Juno is set free and let loose in the world in the Abstergo computers, and will probably be seen again in Assassin's Creed 5.
Okay, if you have come back now, the spoiler is done. Just letting you guys know.
It is not enough.
It will never be enough. You strive for that which does not exist. Still, you have made a difference, and you will do so again.
Once again, we have shown you another clip, and this time we will be transitioning to talk about Connor. In that clip, Juno has said that you still have made a difference, and you will do so again. Because Connor was kind of PO'd, that his people got taken out, and he felt that he didn't do good, but Juno knows he did, and he will do so again. It's self-explanatory. But what does that mean? What we think that means is that he will do so again, meaning in another great time period like the French Revolution.
Which is only 6 years after.
Yes, 6 years after 1883 to 1899, or no, 89.
No, it's 1889 to 1899.
Yes, so it's about 6 years after. And Connor will only be in his late 20s. So
Early 30s, maybe.
he's still very young and capable of fighting and participating in whatever is to be of Assassin's Creed 5. And he will also be very important because Juno said he will make a difference.
They, like, you know, if you ever know about the first civilization, they tell the future, they know what's going to happen, but the humans don't. So
They give hints.
Yeah, they always speak in riddles. So, if she says something's going to happen, that he will do something,
It's gonna happen.
I don't think it's going to happen in a Connor standalone game. Let's just say that.
I don't know if they want to do another Connor standalone. I don't know.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
They might add him.
Into Unity.
Yeah.
He might come and help
Yeah.
out in the Brotherhood.
And speaking of Connor, if you ever go on AC Initiates, which is now one of my favorite sites, you should look around the 1800s
On the timeline.
Because that will give you a lot of information about Isiosa, which is the grandson of Adewale, who starred in the DLC for Assassin's Creed Black Flag Freedom Cry.
And in Assassin's Creed 4 itself as Edward Kenway's second in command on the
Ship
Jackal.
captain. It's like, quartermaster. That's right,
Quartermaster.
quartermaster.
And Edward so happens to be Connor's grandfather.
So it says on Initiates, it was one of Isiosa's last entries from his diary that he's kind of writing to his grandpa. And I know his grandpa was gone, but he was kind of writing a codex. So then he was talking about the French Revolution, and he's involved with it because Saint Monaco, which is Port-au-Prince, was a French colony.
Which is the place that you participated in Freedom Cry.
So he promised his grandfather that he would free that place. So his brotherhood worked on freeing it, so he was involved in the French Revolution. So it's 1804, and the French Revolution's over, and Napoleon is ruling, but he's getting kind of corrupt. And
This is during the Napoleonic Wars.
yes, and his friend Dessalines or something now rules Port-au-Prince, and he needs help because all of his brothers are dead.
Isiosa
So
does.
Isiosa's brothers are dead, so he gets contacted by Connor.
No,
as
he
you-
contacts
No, he
Connor.
gets contacted by Connor.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Yes, he gets contacted by Connor, and as you can see there, he goes to the Davenport homestead.
This is a picture taking off of...
Initiates, all rights to Ubisoft. And he goes and he trains because he knows stuff about revolutions.
That's what he says Connor knows about.
But what I'm thinking is, also because if he's in the French Revolution, that means Unity could be stretched outside of the French Revolution, like we have mentioned in our trailer analysis, and go on into the Napoleonic Wars. So if that happens, that means Connor could also appear in that part of the game. But that raises the question, is from the DLC for the PS3 in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, you can play as Aveline, and you go to northern New England and you save, I guess you want to call it save, an assassin who was very persistent. Her name was Patience Gibbs. That's her name. And Connor had sent a letter to Aveline telling her maybe you can try to pretty much calm her down. So she has a piece of Eden, which makes her read minds, kind of. It's confusing. I don't know. I'd never played it. I have Xbox. But anyway, she now was dropped off at the Davenport homestead. But the question also arises, does Aveline stay there with her? So it could be all in one home. Aveline, if she's not dead yet, because she's really old.
Well, she's not really old. She's like 10 years older than Connor.
She was 60. I thought she was, I don't know.
Yeah, she was like 10 years older than Connor.
Oh, then my mistake. She's older, so I don't know why. Never mind, my mistake. So, Aveline could be there, and Patience Gibbs could be there, along with Connor, training.
Wait, Patience is living there. Aveline, she might have went back down to Louisiana, but who knows?
She might not have. Who
I
knows?
don't
Like
know.
it never said. So then that means if Patience is still training there and being an assassin, and then Isiosa goes up with him, that means they could start a new brotherhood.
which would be very interesting to see if Unity deals with that. Like, if that is part of the main story for some sort, or whatever. I don't know. It could be elaborated in a million different ways. That's just one of the ways I interpreted it, and it's pretty interesting to me. Last thing we have to talk about today is something that happened in Assassin's Creed 3. If you go outside the Animus at a certain point in time, I don't really know when, but you actually at any time, you can just talk to William. Yeah, you can talk to William about joining with the Templars. Like, has it happened before? Obviously, Desmond wouldn't know because he's been away from them all his life. But William said it actually has tried to work before, but they never ended up going with it. Like, it always failed. Like, it happened for a while, maybe like a couple months, maybe a year or two. They all tried to work for the same purpose, but it just never worked out. They started fighting again. And that goes to show for the new title of Assassin's Creed, Unity. Because maybe in this title, there is some sort of collaboration with the Assassins and Templars, maybe to bring down Juno, or to bring down Napoleon. Yeah, maybe for a time period, the Templars and the Assassins in the French Revolution actually worked together to bring down a greater cause.